Hello and welcome to Cleveland Classic Cinema. This week's offering is 1960's The Wasp Woman, directed by Roger Corman.
Supposing a more powerful form of royal jelly could be obtained. From the queen wasp, for example.
Socially, the queen wasp is on level with the black widow spider.
Oh, no. There might be danger.
Those are my terms, Mr. Fincher. Janice Stalin will be your next guinea pig.
A woman of fantastic desires, sponsoring a scientist with fantastic theories, and demanding fantastic results.
How old do I look? Tell me! How old? 23.
The enzymes, they're going crazy. Miss Darling will kill her and tear her body to shreds.
In the early 1950s, Hollywood was getting shellacked by television, and there was no end in sight. Theaters were closing all over the country, major stars were getting fired, and ticket sales were lower than they had ever been before. Panic was setting in, and the studios did everything they could think of to lure people away from their televisions and out of their homes. Widescreen movies, stereo sound, all-star cast extravaganzas, 3D. Hollywood tried to fix the problem by throwing money at it, and it wasn't working. Then came American International Pictures. AIP was founded by two men, Samuel Z. Arkoff and James H. Nicholson. Sam Arkoff was born in Fort Dodge, Iowa, and became a business lawyer. And in 1954, he met James Nicholson, a promo man for Real Art Pictures. Both of them were a bit disenchanted with what they were doing at the time, and the prospect of making and distributing movies appealed to them. They formed American Releasing Corporation and soon after hooked up with a young director named Roger Corman, who had a movie called The Fast and the Furious that needed distribution. They struck a 3-picture deal with him, and the movie became the first release of American International Pictures. Taking the profits from their first movie and sinking them back into production, AIP began to crank movies out at a furious rate, and they used a brilliant strategy to sell them. Nicholson would make up titles, and Arkoff would test market them to exhibitors. If they got enough nibbles on a particular title, they'd write a script to fit it and make the movie, thereby ensuring they were in the black before they even began shooting. The critics hated the movies and the major studios considered them a joke, but AIP made more pictures than all the major studios combined and never lost money. Both Nicholson and Arkoff had an excellent eye for talent, and they ended up giving many directors, set designers, makeup artists, and actors their first breaks. All they had to do was, in the words of Arkoff, work fast and work cheap. Although today they seem incredibly innocent, AIP movies were considered scandalous in their day. Arkoff had everyone from the Catholic Legion of Decency to J. Edgar Hoover on his back for fostering moral delinquency, and along with EC Comics, ruining the youth of America. This was, of course, nonsense. Teenagers are going to rebel no matter what, and trying to prevent them from seeing movies or reading comic books only makes them seek another way to get their hands on them. In 1957, AIP released I Was a Teenage Werewolf and struck the Comstock lode of the youth market. The movie was shot in 7 days at a cost of $150,000 and returned over $2 million in 2 weeks. Production at AIP stepped up, and soon they were making an unheard of 50 pictures a year. Now think about that. That's a little less than 1 movie per week, scripted, shot, edited, and released, and not one of them lost money. They pretty much reinvented the C school of advertising, as evidenced by this poster for Invasion of the Saucermen. C, the disembodied hand that crawls. C, Night the World Nearly Ended. C, Earth Attacked by Flying Saucers. I saw that movie, and the only thing in it was the hand. The Wasp Woman is a good instance of the mid-period American international output. This is the point where they were changing from drive-in monster schlock to drive-in schlock of another kind entirely, that being beach party movies. I wasn't a fan of the beach party movies even when they were new. Although I was only in the single digits of my life, I knew crap when I saw it, so Frankie, Annette, Bonehead, Von Zipper, and the rest of them never registered on my radar. The sad thing about this period of the studio's life is that some of the zip, the insanity that made AIP monster movies fun to watch was disappearing, and The Wasp Woman is an example of this. Susan Cabot, who plays Janice Starling, was born Helen Shapiro on July 9, 1927 in Boston. Raised in 8 foster homes, she started her career as a singer and made her first appearance on film as an extra in 1947's Kiss of Death. She worked for Fox and Columbia before landing a contract at Universal. Tired of the Westerns and Arabian Nights type features she was shoehorned into, she managed to get out of her contract and began appearing on Broadway. Roger Corman lured her back to Hollywood, and she appeared in a few more films before retiring from movies in 1959. She had a son, Timothy Scott Roman, a dwarf. He beat her to death with a weight bar on December 10, 1986. Through some very clever legal maneuvering, he got off with a 3-year suspended sentence. Anthony Isley, who plays cheapskate Neanderthal Bill Lane, was born on January 19, 1925 in Philadelphia. He appeared in 34 movies and made 63 television appearances over the course of his career. His first film was 1952's Fearless Fagin, and his last film was 1991's Lolita el Desnudo. He died on January 20th, 2003 in Woodland Hills, California. Watching The Wasp Woman today is a strange experience. I can't speak for audiences of the early 60s, but I was surprised by the attitude shown by the characters in this movie towards Janice Starling. Here you have a woman who founded a cosmetics company, built it into a very successful business from the ground up, employs hundreds of people, and is, in her early middle age, still very attractive. Yet when sales begin to slip, her male heads of research and advertising blame it on her fading looks rather than themselves, and instead of finding fault with the way these Neanderthals are doing their jobs, Janice just accepts this with nothing more than a little sarcasm. When Dr. Zinthrop, an honest and ethical scientist, shows up at the firm with a formula derived from royal jelly that reverses the aging process, he not only makes reasonable requests, but also seals the deal with a handshake, telling Janice that he can tell she's a good person. When Janice finds out that this fountain of youth actually works, she instantly volunteers to be the first human test subject, and Zinthrop turns her down just as quickly, saying that the formula isn't ready for human testing yet. In spite of this, her staff instantly assume that he's either a con man or a quack and treat him with suspicion or outright hostility. The film's hero, and I use the term loosely, is Bill Lane, the company's advertising exec. This guy is so cheap that he tosses his girlfriend, Janice's assistant Mary, to see who'll pay for dinner when they go out. He and the head of research, Arthur Cooper, lose no time in browbeating Mary into helping them protect Janice. Mary readily agrees in order to curry the favor of the louse she's dating, and soon she's not only eavesdropping on Janice's private conversations, but stealing correspondence from her desk. The only characters in this movie that are even remotely likable are Janice and Zinthrop. The rest are either moronic, selfish, or stupid, yet we're supposed to root for them. So right now, sit back, relax, and enjoy The Wasp Woman, right here on Cleveland Classic Cinema.